Good evening, Miss Miyurangai Karunaratne.
Evening.
So thank you so much for joining this interview. So without taking much time, let me move to my first question. So can I
Sure.
know if learning English has affected your identity? If so, in what ways?
Yes, I'm working as a lecturer, actually, visiting lecturer in several universities. So in this case, teaching in English is the medium that I'm used to most of the time since I graduated with the bachelor's in English medium, and also I'm supposed to teach the students in English medium. So that always enhanced my identity, and as at the same time, it gave a sort of an identity to me because, like even when I was working in these sort of certain state universities, they
Yeah.
wanted me to do English medium lectures. So they expected me to do so because there were no other lecturers who were like capable doing lectures in
Hmm.
English medium. So that was the case, and yeah, that in that case, I think it gave me a sort of an identity, a person who can teach in English, and at the same time, since I'm working in private sector now, most of the courses are being held in English. So the medium is completely English, and I'm supposed to work with them in English. So people recognize me as a person who can teach in English. So that gave me
Right.
an identity. Yes.
All right. Okay. So do you change the way you use English depending on the social setting? For instance, in a professional setting, let's say with coworkers or students, versus in a personal setting, let's say at home or with friends?
Yes, that completely depends on the situation, of course, because like when I'm with students and when I'm working in a university and when I'm with colleagues, that means I have to work in a professional setting. Like it's like we have to deal with more professionalism. So in that case, I
Yes.
think most of the time use in English in a a more professional way. But when I'm having very sincere conversations with students, sometimes I am used to joke a little bit and talk about their personal stuff as well. So it's something like a very friendly and a sincere conversation, which is enhancing the relationship between the teacher and the student. So in that case also, I'm using a sort of a casual way of talking. And apart from that, in the normal setup in the household and social statuses that I'm holding, I think in the household I'm not using English at all. But when it comes to friends, sometimes I used to text them in English, but not in a way that I'm conversing with them in English. But sometimes I use a mixed language, like it's sometimes I use Sinhalese and at the same time I use English. So I think all these things are being like used in my life.
Right. So are you comfortable with code switching, as in using English and Sinhala simultaneously or switching between languages?
Yeah, that is something that I am doing, but not in a very regular way.
Hmm.
But in lectures, I am constantly using English. But in like normal conversations with my colleagues, sometimes with my friends, sometimes I'm using these both Sinhalese and English languages. So it's like sometimes we just elaborate things in Sinhalese and just stating something in English as a proposition maybe, and elaborating things in Sinhalese. And sometimes I just say something in Sinhalese and just elaborate in English. So that's the way.
Yeah. So do you think the gender or the class of the students would be kind of, is it a factor that affects your utilization of English or Sinhala, I
No,
would
I don't
say?
think. Yeah,
Right.
the thing is, there are like there's no factors that there are actually no factors that I'm like that is making me to use English in daily conversations. But
Hmm.
if the context is okay with me, I'm using it. And at the same time, these factors that you mentioned, gender, race, or whatever it is, it doesn't affect the way that I'm talking with people. And like I'm just a person who knows Sinhalese and English, and there are people who knows only Tamil, like I can't use
Yeah.
Tamil in front of them. So
Hmm.
it's not a gender based and or a race based thing, but I use it as a way of communication rather than calling it a way of considering people to be in my level. So it's something that is individualistic, and at the same time I just think that it is very important for me to, converse with people, talk with people, and get their ideas, perspectives about things. That's the only thing that matters to me when I'm talking with people.
Yeah. Okay. So you said that your professional setting involves both psychology and lecturing. So how
Yes.
has that impacted your use of the English language? So is it so different when you consider these both professions?
Can you explain me the question again? You were a bit of lagging. That was
Oh, right. Okay.
case.
So when it comes to your professional setting, you said that it is related to psychology and lecturing both, right? So when it
Yes.
comes to counseling specifically, so how is
Yeah.
your knowledge of English, or let's say utilization of English, is impactful?
Well, like it's been a while that I did counseling, because last time that I did counseling was about a year ago. So, like during the time, I did not use English language in counseling setups because most of the students were like not that good in English. And at the same time, I was a student counselor, most importantly. So I was working with students, university undergraduates and students. So they were more comfortable with Sinhalese, and they wanted me to, it made them really easy for them to explain themselves with Sinhalese rather than talking in English. But sometimes there were certain, like one or two cases that I handled that people wanted to express in English.
Mm,
And at the same time, in lecturing, it affected me like a lot, because most of the, like if we take theoretically, most of the theories and all the concepts are in English, so we are supposed to learn in English.
mm,
And I'll tell you one of my examples, one of my experiences actually, when I was used to teach in this state university. So there was we will call him a lecturer.
mm,
So he used to tell us that, okay, why are you learning psychology in English medium? Because most of the people are coming to you as clients are mostly using Sinhalese. So you have to learn psychology in Sinhalese so that you can help people in
mm,
only in Sinhalese. So, but when it comes to my thought, I think my thinking, my ideas, perspectives, I think learning psychology in English is the most important thing, because most of the theories, all the new knowledge is basically like completely coming from the like Europe, the
mm,
English world. So they are using these, like they are all the theoretical notions are coming from the Western world. So in that case, I think if we are supposed to expand ourselves as lecturers, as teachers, as educators or practitioners, I think the best way for us to enhance ourselves is learning English. So when it comes to Sinhalese, I think uh, counseling was successful when it comes to using Sinhala,
mm,
but when it comes to English, it was a bit uncomfortable for them. But like in lecturing, I think the most important thing is the language for them. Like last week, when I was doing a lecture, I instructed the students to go home. While you are on the way, you have to buy an English newspaper
mm,
so that you can read it. You can go through the whole thing and come with a sort of an idea what people are talking about, and what are the they will at least get several new words. They will know several new words from the newspaper. I asked them to do that because I felt like while I was lecturing, I saw that there were two or three students who were not that good in English. So I asked them to like constantly learn the subject, because at
mm,
least you should have maybe like 3,000 to 5,000 words at least to talk in English. For that, I instructed them. So I think in lectures also I use sometimes Sinhalese, because I feel like if this student is feeling uncomfortable, I see that. So I
mm,
am tending to explain things in Sinhalese as well. But I think there are very good students. There are very compatible students who can grasp the things that we say.
mm,
So they are very forward, and sometimes I think using Sinhala language is a discomfort for them,
mm.
maybe a disadvantage for them, because they are far ahead like than us maybe. So this is the problem, I think. So yes, I think that's the best answer for you.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it is. And what do you think about this idea of worship in English? You can see that in this Sri Lankan setting, right? What do you think about that? As in, what is your take on it?
Yeah, I think this comes with the colonial ideas,
Mm.
because like from the day that British people invaded us, and at the same time, like even in the universities, I'm from a state university, and as you are, so we know that in these universities, with our experience, we saw that
Mm.
how people, like these student unions and all, they are talking in English, talking about English as kadda,
Mm.
like kadda is for cutting off people. So it's like it's a tool that we can use to crush people. That's the identification that they have. And when it comes to the first year also, my experience was that most of the student union people, they are completely afraid of talking with English medium people, and at the same time English department people. So it's like they had this mindset, okay, the people who can talk in English, and the people who can speak in English, they are somewhat a different class. They have a completely different standard. That's their thought. I
Mm.
think when it comes to the the rural areas, like let's say not the places which is not Colombo, I mean not around Colombo.
Yeah.
So these places are also like I think people think that if you know English, that is considered to be maybe an added advantage.
Mm.
So if you sometimes I think people think like that because uh, I think if I go back to the place where I started this answer,
Mm.
colonialism, that's the place where people,
Root
it
cause.
was something, yeah, the root cause. At the same time, people have been learning English from the very beginning. Like for example, from the days that the British invaded us,
Mm.
people had like a sort of system which made out of English. So people were used to behave in English. So after this act, which was done in 1956,
Mm.
to my memory, I think it's
Yes, yes.
answer the Sinhalese Act, the main language of Sri Lanka would be English, so Sinhalese.
Yeah.
That's the idea. I think, from that point of view, people started taking, uh, Sinhalese to be the most serious thing, and they started, neglecting the fact that we should talk in English, we should embrace English.
Mm.
So it was some sort of, uh, disadvantage that people had, because talking in English, I think it was the chance for us to understand the world. I think in India they had the same thing, but they overcame this issue in a better way.
Mm.
These people, they had a proper literature. Like for example, Rabindranath Tagore, he
Mm.
was a great poet, he was a great author. So
Mm.
he what his emphasis, his explanations were completely not just for Indians but also for the whole world, right? So when it comes to Sri Lanka, from the moment we banned using English, I think people started, having this mindset in their heads, like okay, Sinhala is the most important thing, and
Mm.
it became a more of a racial identification towards people as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's the root cause behind this. So I think people worship this. At the same time, people neglect it, because I
Mm.
think people are
Like
so much
binary
afraid of.
opposites.
Yes, of course.
Mm.
And at the same time, I must say that now these days I'm learning German actually. So
Mm.
it was sort of a interest that I had when I was in the university also, when I was doing my bachelor's. So I'm learning German, but like it's more likely learning English. It's kind of a hobby to me now. Like I'm following the A1 course at
Mm.
Goethe Institute. So it's like learning a new language is not a skill that you have. It's something that we have inside ourselves. So if
Mm.
you are, flowing with it, it will come to you definitely. So it's like not a, completely outside thing for us. It's something that we can embrace and we
Mm.
can enjoy. Yeah, that's how it works.
Okay, right. So have you ever felt that your accent affects how people perceive your image?
No, to me, I have never noticed that people, discriminate me based on my accent. But I think that comes with Indian accents. I think,
Mm.
one day my husband told me that, he has been working in another country for about 2-3 years.
Mm.
So he has had several friends from several countries. So when he asked about his accent, because he was Sri Lankan, he's Sri Lankan, and he asked asked his other friends, from other countries, what do you think about our accent? Do you think that it is similar to Indian accent? They have said yes, it's more likely to be Indian accent. So
Mm.
like, even though like we do not consider ourselves to be, very polite, and in a way that we are not using a particular accent,
Mm.
I think that that is being identified as an Indian accent. So even though like I don't think that using an accent would benefit us in any manner.
Mm.
The only thing of a language is to converse. People go to these elocution classes, and they
Mm.
try to give their children something that is out of their range maybe.
Yeah,
But
and
I
this
think
mushrooming of international schools as well.
exactly. Yes,
Mm.
exactly. Like I've been teaching these students, like I've seen several students using very good accents. I really admire them, but that is not the way that we can define a person. Like a person who has an accent can be a completely a fool person,
Mm.
So it's not a way that we can decide whether this person has a standard or not.
Mm.
It might be because they are somewhat wealthy, or they are more than the middle class people. But the problem lies with the model, like
Mm.
middle class lower people. So they are the ones who are trying to reach a level where they cannot reach,
Mm.
and they take the accent to be a very primary thing there, a most important initial point there. So they are trying to make their children aware of this. They want themselves, they know that they can't do this, but they are trying their children to be like more armored with the accent. I think that's the problem here. I haven't seen that in my life, that someone is criticizing me for
Mm.
my accent, or some giving any bad comment about myself. But it's not something that I experienced. What I have seen is, if you can communicate properly in English, that is what that has been appreciated most of the time. That's my personal experience.
All right. So, my last question would be, do you prefer using English or your first language in digital communication? Let's say in texting or social media, can be Facebook, Insta, or WhatsApp status as well.
Yes, I'd rather love to, because very recently I saw that I have a tendency that I'm using Sinhalese in my statuses, WhatsApp
Mm.
statuses. To be
Yeah.
honest, I'm not using Facebook, Instagram, and other
Mm.
social media. I'm only using WhatsApp. So my only example would be WhatsApp. So
Yeah.
there, I'm most of the time, like using these statuses in English, and I try to, put things in English rather than elaborating things in Sinhalese. But when it comes to descriptive elaborations, like I'm writing these essay type things, my personal viewpoints about things. So when it comes to those, I tend to use Sinhalese, because it's the most comfortable way for me to express. But I have experienced that when it comes to English, it's better, you can express things in a better way rather than using Sinhalese, because Sinhalese is a more sentimental thing for me.
Mm.
Because if you're explaining something in Sinhalese, that means you can go to all the extremes of the language. That means it's like you can make it really happy, or you can make it
Mm.
completely down, completely dark. But when it comes to English, it's a medium where you can moderately use it, and at the same time give the point of view that you have exactly in a factual way.
Mm.
So that is like, that is very easy for us to use this. But very recently I saw that I'm using certain Sinhalese captions, and
Mm.
I just noticed this yesterday
Mm.
or day before yesterday, and I thought I have to stop this, because it is becoming sort of an odd thing to me. Because yesterday was my brother's birthday. Actually, I put the status as happy birthday Lokumalli. So it
Mm.
was completely Pandinayak Lokumalli. So it was okay to me, but at the same time I felt a sort of a discomfort, because am I really going to use Sinhalese when I'm wishing someone? So it's not just wishing someone, it's something beyond that. I think the identification that I have, it goes back to the first question that you asked from me, the
Mm.
identity that I have about myself, whether it is made out of English or Sinhalese. I think I love to say that whether I can, I love to say whether okay, I love to say it is sort of English, but I'm not saying that I hate Sinhalese. But it's a way that I can express myself. And sometimes it's easier, sometimes when we use Sinhalese, we cannot say the same thing without a sentiment. But
Mm.
when we are using Sinhalese, we use the emotion. Like, for example, in India, when they are making movies, most of the time they put the emotions with all
Mm.
the music and all the sitar and all the tabla and everything. They put the emotion there with words, and people are
Yeah.
completely caught of it because they love the emotion, they embrace it.
Mm.
But when it comes to us also, I think our cinema is not that good at all. But at
Mm.
the same time, I think. It's better if we can reduce this to some extent, and start talking in a factual way. I think most of the time that is the thing that is being missed mostly,
Mm.
like even in the parliament, even in the political propaganda, even in the social contexts.
Yeah.
Like, we are more likely to be uh, sentimental beings rather than being rational beings.
Mm.
So a language usage always define the person's rational reason whether this
Mm.
person is intellectual. So English is a good way for that, I think. So when it comes to social media, I think it's a way that we can elaborate our conceptualization about things, and at the same time what we think about the outside phenomena
Mm.
situations, and our perspectives about those. But it's better if we can use a factual language rather
Mm.
than being a sentimental. So that's my idea.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our interview. So thank you immensely for your participation, Miss Miyurangane.
No problem. Okay.